A bit of breaking news for us, guys. Hang here for a second. We've just now learned that, as we reported earlier in the broadcast, the president had threatened to sue the Wall Street Journal. He now has done so. So according to our Alex Mallon, President Trump has filed a libel lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal, Rupert Murdoch, and others over that report that we referenced earlier on in the show about Trump's ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Selena, I want to get back to you here because we've seen the White House, not necessarily as it relates to this report, but just in general, start to try to take action to release more documents. And the timing of it was somewhat, maybe coincidental might not be the right word, because this directive to Pam Bondi to release that grand jury testimony comes on the same night as that Wall Street Journal report. So what is the president directing the attorney general to specifically do?
Yeah, well, as we were just talking about, the goal here is him telling his attorney general to try and release more materials. And the exact quote was to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. But again, look, this is a long process. There's still a lot of unknowns here. That is subject to a federal judge approving that, and it's unclear how that's going to work out. There could be hearings to determine the impact on victims. The president, again, trying to distance himself from decision making here, really punting a lot of this to the Department of Justice. And the president has also been trying to downplay the whole case, suggesting that there's no smoking gun in all of this. But what's really interesting is what you just heard Will talk about, which is that story overnight has sort of unified the MAGA base, but it's unclear just how long they're going to be unified for, and if this move from the president is going to be enough, given that many of the supporters had called for more. They were demanding the release of the full FBI files on Epstein. So look, the story's still far from over.
Well, how long could the release of these grand jury documents take? Selena walked us through that process a little bit, but grand jury records are typically supposed to be kept sealed. They are not supposed to be released, usually in this manner. So this could be a lengthy court process for the Justice Department.
That's right. As Selena laid out, this is not something that President Trump can just wave a magic wand and all of a sudden all the Epstein files, especially these grand jury testimonies, are released. And, that might be a benefit in some ways, potentially for the White House and for the president, who's desperate to move on. Maybe this length and this time, and with folks in the base who've been outraged, getting behind the president, given this story from the Wall Street Journal last night, maybe things, subside. Maybe the length of time helps that. But at the other coin, on the other side of the coin, they're going to be counting down the days. People like Laura Loomer and Benny Johnson, they're going to be counting down the days for when these, supposed promise now transcripts from the grand jury are released. I guarantee you they'll be knocking on the White House door, wondering where they are forever, how long it takes for them to be, actually released to the public.